CIL 650 presents It's Your Money, an up-close and personal look at your finances. Here's your host, Fred Snyder.
Up in the morning and out to school.
Okay, we're back. Mind you once again, ladies and gentlemen and listeners out there, this is a live show. So we're here every Saturday between 8 and 9 o'clock talking about your money, more importantly about your money and how to keep it. How to keep it is what we're talking about. Everybody earns a lot of money. Very few people are successful at keeping their hard-earned dollars because they never taught us in school how to do that. That's our mission, our purpose, our raison d'etre is to teach you what you need to know to make better financial decisions. And that starts with a financial plan. And we'll talk a bit about that today. Again, if you take 100 people who started equal today at the age of 25, by the time they end up at 65, one is wealthy, only one. 4 are well-to-do, 5 are still working, 36 are dead, and the remaining 54 are dead broke, dependent on family and state. If you don't believe me, go to Stats Canada, look it up, and you'll see that those numbers are true. And I think the educational system has let us down big time because they should be teaching us not only how to earn and make money, but they should teach us how to keep it. That's what it's all about. Last week we talked about the financial plan and the financial planning process. We're going to continue with that today. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to teach you what you need to know to make better financial decisions. A financial plan starts with education, establishing goals, evaluating where you stand right now, having a cash management system, managing risk, managing debt, a retirement plan. For your extra dollars after you've satisfied your retirement issues like a TFSA and things like that, you need a capital creation plan. And if you do all that, you will become wealthy. And then you have an estate. And you get tax problems and all kinds of issues with your estate and the review process. So those are the 10 steps. Number 9 is estate. So we're going to focus today on estate. And we're also going to focus on what happens if you die without a will. Okay? Think about that. Let that sink in. Do you have a will? No, I don't have a will. Well, you have one. You have the one that you write, or you have the one the government writes for you if you don't have one. Joining me today is Timothy Jacob Lack. He's a lawyer, barrister, solicitor with Lenny Atmore.
Yes, I am. Thanks, Fred.
And Tim, tell us what you do.
Well, I've been a lawyer for 20 years, and I'm not much of a barrister. I've been in the court on a few occasions, but I'm usually behind my desk pumping out the paper, and that's the solicitor side of the lawyer's practice, and that's where I focus. And certainly wills and estates are a big portion of what I do every day, and I'm glad to be here to talk about wills and dying without a will. I was actually quite impressed the way you introduced the financial plan. You know, I bet most people don't think that it's such a organized thing in their or should be an organized part of their life.
Tim, it's a blueprint to take you from where you are right now to where you want to go financially speaking.
Yeah.
It's the road. It's the map.
As opposed to just something you turn your mind to this time of year.
You do it on an ad hoc basis,
yeah.
and you're not, you're not responsive or whatever. You just kind of, it's just going to happen. Somehow I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen, and listeners out there, unless you become more proactive with how you deal with your finances. You're not going to get there. Period. Okay. Unless you win the lottery and you're lucky. And most people that win the lottery, they're broke in a year because they spend it all. I mean, I know people that have done that.
Yes, I do. I do as well.
They win the lottery. They think they can give $200,000 to their kids, $100,000 to their mother, and all the rest of it. You don't do that. You invest the money wisely and you live off the income. That's what you need to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, we take your calls. We want to have conversations with you, our listeners, about your money, more importantly, about your money and how to keep it. So get on the line and give us a call. The number to call is 604-280-0650. If you're out of town, it's 1-877-280-0650. And for those who are shy or reluctant to talk on the air, Frida's down at the office. You can reach Frida right now at area code 604-737-3512. If you call in long distance down there, it's 1-800-661-1495. Let's get back to Tim.
All right. You know, this subject about dying without a will, it came to me first on the radio a number of years ago when I started hearing those ads for the do-it-yourself wills kits. Mm-hmm. And while those ads weren't inaccurate and they weren't necessarily wrong, they were a little bit, they struck fear in people, suggesting that if they didn't have the will, as you said, the government will make that decision for you as to what happens with your estate. And again, that's not untrue, but it's not as sinister as that may sound. But let's think about what are the things that you want to get in your will for sure. What are the most fundamental things that you want to do with your will? And I think the first one is you're appointing someone to look after your affairs after you die.
That's called an executor?
Yeah, that's right. Some people call it a personal representative. Some people refer to it as an executor, or the word trustee is often used as well. So it's an important role. You know, it's quite often the surviving spouse, but not always. But that's the person who's going to be looking at your estate, your assets, your liabilities, and making sure your wishes are carried out. If you die without a will, well, then
what happens?
Someone has to apply to the courts to be that trustee, the executor, that personal representative. Okay, so you're dying without a will. It just means someone has to make a case to the courts and say, I want to be the personal administrator for this person's estate, and that takes time.
What
and
about
that
the
takes
public
money.
trustee? Is there a role there?
It doesn't. If no one applies, and there isn't anyone who should be applying, the public trustee can step in.
So you could have the public trustee managing your affairs if
That's
you're not
right.
careful.
And there is a cost associated with that, but you know that's not as common as people think it is. There's usually someone who steps up and says, I have to do this. But again, there's a time and cost associated with that step if there isn't one named in the will.
So if a person dies and there is no will, how do they figure out how to distribute the assets?
Well, Fred, I was going to get to that, but let's jump right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most important thing you do with your will is saying, here's what I have and here's how I'd like it distributed.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you don't have a will, well, the new Wills, Estates, and Succession Act that just isn't even a year old here in British Columbia.
And we need to talk about that.
Yeah. Has a distribution methodology set up in the Act. And for example, if you have a spouse and no children, it obviously goes to your surviving spouse.
Okay.
But if you have a spouse and children, then there's a mechanism for the children to have some of those assets right away.
How does that work? How
Well,
much?
the first 300 goes to the spouse, and the 50% of any residue goes to the spouse, with the kids sharing in the other 50%. But
Okay.
the wills I do prepare, Fred, most people want to provide for their spouse firstly and only,
Yeah.
because you know we don't know what the circumstances are going to be for that surviving spouse with health care, extended care, and what have you.
Of course.
Yeah. So in this, if you wanted to provide for a spouse only and let the kids be the alternate beneficiaries after that second spouse dies, that's not going to happen if you die intestate. And forgive me, when I say die intestate, that is the same as dying without a will. That's
yes.
a legal term.
Well, you have a will. It's what the government does.
Yes.
Okay. Technically, if you want to control how your assets are distributed, then you have to have a will. If you don't have a will, the government's going to decide.
That's right. And that distribution methodology, it keeps going further out to your further next of kin, and ultimately, if you die without any next of kin, the government gets it all, the provincial government.
Do you yourself do wills?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And I'm at the stage of my career now where the wills I've started preparing early in my career, I'm now probating.
Well, I was just going because I think that's probably a good business for lawyers to do, because you do the will, you end up doing the legal stuff down the road.
If you survive.
Yeah. Good plan.
Yeah.
Okay, sowing the seeds. Okay, so anyway, if you're out there, you're listening to the show, you just joined us. I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder, also a registered financial planner representing Scotia McLeod, and I'm here with Timothy Lack, and he's a lawyer specializing in estate planning, basically, writing wills and all kinds of things like that. Get on the line and give us a call. The number to call is area code 604-280-0650. 284 604-280-0650, 1-877-280-0650 if you're calling long distance. Log on, www.cial.650.com. You want to see what we look like? You click on Watch TV and you can watch the show live, okay? And again, there are people out there who might want to make an appointment to see me, might want to book a seminar, might want to come in for a second opinion on their investment portfolio. We provide all that, gratis, no cost of any kind, no obligation of any kind. Call Frida. She's down at the office right now at area code 604-737-3512. If you're calling long distance, it's 800-661-1495. I'm talking with lawyer Tim Lack, and specializes in estate planning, really knows what he's talking about. I had a caller last week which had a question that I couldn't answer. And if that same caller is listening, why don't you call? Because we have a lawyer right here, right now.
Uh-oh.
He can ask you to call. Give us a call if you're out there. Okay, once again, 604-280-0650. Long distance, 877-280-0650. Log on, www.cial.650.com. Frida down at the office, area code 604-737-3512. If you're calling long distance, it's 800-661-1495. And remember, once again, I go to Vancouver Island. You want to book an appointment for the next time I'm over there at the Coast Bastion Hotel, do the same, give Frida a call. So we want your calls. We want to talk to you, our listeners, about your money, but more importantly, about your money and how to keep it. And we're talking about the estate planning process. We have a caller, Maria from Vancouver, is on the line. Maria, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm happy to call. The last time I talked, it was quite sad. But there's a good part today, even though I have a very important question. My husband is on his way home after leaving me for a few months. But this is the question. He has put everything in his father's name. His father is born in 1931. So if I am the wife and I'm supposed to be the one that gets helped, how does that work?
Forgive me, Maria, when you said your husband left you, so you were actually separated for a while?
He went to check out Mexico because he thought the sunshine and whatever else was there is better. But he prefers the cold, so he's coming back. So he's going to get a warm reception, but I would like this question answered.
Okay, and you say, is he moving all his, or is he trying to move all his assets into his father's name, or he's already gone ahead and done all that?
I believe he's done it.
Okay, well, let's think about some of the assets that a couple like yourself might have. And that
to be perfectly honest, what he has is a nice pension. I have the rest.
Okay.
So if I'm to automatically share 50% of what I have, what he has goes to his dad, and I hope he lives to 150. But because I just heard that the wife gets it to help out the wife when that day comes, that she needs help.
Well, I guess Maria. I guess the question is, can he change the beneficiary of his pension plan from you to his father?
Yeah, and if he does do that, and whether it's a pension plan or a tax-free savings account, RSP, or insurance policy, those are the types of instruments, Maria, where a person names a beneficiary, and that's an investment that often skips through the estate because there's a named beneficiary in those types of investments. So you can name a beneficiary that is different from the beneficiaries you name in your will. So those are types of assets that may or may not actually form part of the estate assets when a person dies. And
so the other question is this. If I decide to give what I have to my children and not to him, apparently it's not right. What is right?
Well, the courts take the position that a person dying has a moral obligation to provide for certain types of people, and those are the spouses and children, okay? So if and when Well, I shouldn't say if and when. We all do die, right? Don't we?
No kidding.
guaranteed.
It would be
It's
magical
guaranteed.
if somebody doesn't.
Taxes and death.
Right.
In
Guaranteed.
another world.
So, there is mechanisms for people to challenge wills in British Columbia if they feel that towards the end of a person's life, mom or dad excluded me out of spite or because my sibling visited them more often in the hospital than I did. There's mechanisms for you to bring on applications in the courts to say I was left out of unfair reasons.
I had a client in my office last week, Tim, that had a situation where she owned a house jointly with rights of survivorship with her father for 20 years. And then he passed away, so the house is hers. But now she's under court action by the other siblings because they feel they're entitled to a piece of it. And I thought that was a slam dunk, but apparently it's not.
The word joint ownership means that there's a survivorship expectation, so
Yes.
that whether it's a bank account or real property here in British Columbia, you're right. You would think it's a slam dunk that if I'm owning it jointly and the other person dies, I don't need to do anything. It doesn't form part of the estate. There's just, it flows to me by presenting a death certificate either at the land title office or at the bank branch. But I suspect, and I don't know the details of your case, that someone is asserting that the creation of that joint ownership was suspect.
That's precisely the problem.
And that's so. If you are moving assets into a joint ownership, it's important that you document why and how you're doing that. Perhaps the siblings of your client are saying it shouldn't have been done like that 20 years ago.
That's what they're saying, essentially.
Yeah, and again, the courts might.
No, I just want to explain something. My children are from an ex-husband. With this new husband, there is no children.
Okay.
It's my children. It's my home. It's a very new marriage. Just started last summer, but whoever this other person is, I will not say anything nasty. I'm on the radio. Decided to get in between the marriage, and so he decided to fly away. Wouldn't it be nice if he's right now stuck in Ontario because of bad weather? So he is coming home, but I have no shame in saying what I'm saying, because men should not just fly away and leave the family behind. When they get married, that's it. The flying should have taken place before the marriage.
Maria, I think you have a complicated situation here, which is almost too complicated to pursue any further than we have on the radio.
There,
so
right?
you would need to make an appointment with somebody like myself or Tim.
Yeah, Maria,
and take a serious look at the whole situation, because I think there's good reason to do that.
Okay.
So if you want to call Frida or you want to call Tim, she can reach you, Tim, at what number?
604-684-2550, and I'm smack dab downtown Vancouver.
Okay.
Maria, I hope things work out for you. It sounds like, as Fred says, you do have a complicated situation, and one it's a tough one for you right now.
Yes. But as long as we're breathing, it's not as bad.
Well,
Maria, okay, we have to run, and really appreciate your call, Maria. You take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Maria's line is now open. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, and listeners out there, if you just joined us, I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder, also registered financial planner. Those are high qualifications in this industry. I provide people with a written financial plan and second opinion on their investment portfolio. I have a CFA on staff that works with me to do research and everything else. So, and I represent Scotia McLeod. So, again, we're talking about your money, more importantly, about your money and how to keep it. And the best way to keep your money is to have a plan. Okay? If you have a proper plan, then you're going to need estate planning someday, and that's what we're talking about right now. That's the segue that leads into it.
Yeah, Fred, just you using that word plan, I think you're teaching me a bit this morning.
I almost sound like a broken record because I almost talk too much about plans, if you can talk too much about plans, because I think the major reason why people fail at anything, health, wealth, social life, family life, doesn't matter what it is, they don't have a plan. Okay? They just don't have a bloody plan.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get a plan. The plan's the thing, okay? We got Marianne from Langley on the line. Marianne, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hi, Marianne. You're on the line.
Hi.
You're on the air.
I got this dilemma. My ex-husband died a couple of months ago, and he never changed his will, and it was made in 1988, and he still wanted me to have everything. But because of our divorce, I get nothing. Can I still get something?
Just so your ex-husband, how long were you divorced?
About 2 or 3 years.
And so the divorce was finalized approximately when then?
June 2012.
2012. I'm pretty sure, Marianne, that with the divorce, you stop being a spouse, as that term is used in estate administration.
Yeah, but in his mind, he still wanted me to have that. And, you know, he stood right in front of me 2 or 3 months before he died and said, I haven't changed my will, and that will be done for you.
This is a delicate one, Marianne. I've rushed to hospitals on many occasions where people wanted to either have a will or change a will. In the spring this year, I was 3 hours too late, and the person died at 5 a.m., and I was supposed to see them at 8 a.m. And the assets were all in his name, presumably,
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
I don't think there's a relationship there. Once the divorce takes place, it's over. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
well, in the eyes of the statutes that govern this type of situation, you cease being a spouse. I don't necessarily.
I mean, it's like me saying to you, Tim, when I die, I want you to have everything I own. There's no contract. There's nothing in writing.
Yeah.
That's not going to stand up.
No, it's not going to stand up. That's what we're talking about today, about getting it down on paper and documenting what you really want to do.
Because I know the will, the Variation Act changed in 1985. Any will made after that, you know, that you were divorced, that, you know, like included the will was null and void too.
Yeah. And it's changed again in the last year. So, Marianne, I think it's you got to pick up the phone on Tuesday morning after our long weekend here, and get yourself in with a lawyer and see if there's anything that can be done.
She
about
could
your
give you a
situation.
call if you want.
Of course.
Sure.
It's just.
So you got the number for Tim, Marianne?
Well, I can't say it a couple of times there, and then I can
Okay, the
write
number is 604.
I don't have a pen on me, but say it a couple more times.
Okay, 604-684-2550. 604-684-2550.
Yeah, just a minute. I don't have a pen on me, but so when I hang up or whatever, say it a couple more times on the air.
604-684-2550. And I'll tell you what, you go and get a pen and hang up, and I'll give it out once again when you got the pen in your hand, okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Appreciate the call, Marianne. You take care.
On the surface, Marianne, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news today.
Okay, so Marianne's line is now open. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, you just joined us. I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder, also a registered financial planner representing Scotia McLeod. And Marianne's line is now open, and we have Grace from Vancouver on the line. Grace, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I have a plan, but as life goes on, sometimes the plan changes. Like I turned 71 and I just got a RIF.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, in the event of my death, can I leave that RIF to a beneficiary and it does not have to be probated? And that question also applies to my tax-free savings account.
The answer is yes.
Oh, to both?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no probation, no nothing. And it can be left to a person.
Anything. Look, from the point of view, I'm acting as an advisor now. Okay?
Yeah.
I have an expert on here with me, but here's the gist of it. From the point of view of estate planning, the ideal situation most of the time is not to have an estate. Okay? Mm-hmm. If you can name a beneficiary, the assets pass directly to the beneficiary without even going through the estate. And you can name a beneficiary on a TFSA, and you can name a beneficiary on a RIF and an RSP. The only problem you're going to have if the beneficiary is somebody other than your spouse is taxable.
Oh, yeah. It wouldn't be the spouse. Like I was thinking, could I leave some to maybe a charity and then to my...
You could do all that, yes.
But it would be taxable.
Yeah, and I believe in the case of an estate, it's non-taxable.
Yeah, but if you leave it to your estate and you have nobody in your estate, if you're all alone...
No, but, when I didn't mean estate. I'm talking about a charity of some kind or another.
So if I left it to a charity, they would not have to pay the tax?
That's the way I understand it.
Pardon me?
The charity would not.
No.
The charity would.
You're the lawyer.
But I'm not a tax accountant.
I believe it's non-taxable. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Check it out. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
But if I left it to my power of attorney, it would be taxable then, because it's not.
For sure.
Okay.
Anybody you leave it to, with the exception of a spouse, and maybe a charity of some kind or another, like the Salvation Army or whatever, it's taxable. It's a taxable problem.
And what's the percentage of that tax?
Full marginal rates. Let's say you had $500,000 in a RIF, the tax on that could well be half of it.
Oh God. Okay, well,
now, if for anybody out there that's listening to this show right now that has this kind of a problem, what you should be thinking of is funding that problem with life insurance. For example, let's say you have $500,000 in a RIF, and you don't have a surviving spouse. You could buy a $500,000 life insurance policy that would pay a death benefit of $500,000 that could be used, $250,000 I should say, because only half, that could be used to pay the tax. Because a RIF is not taxed as a capital gain; it's all taxed as income. So if you got $500,000, that's $500,000 added on to all the other income you already have on your final tax return. You're going to be taxed at 50% rates because that's the top marginal rate in British Columbia right now.
So a RIF. Okay, I'm going to have to look on that because when I went online, I never got a clear answer about the tax-free savings. Nobody seemed to know about that.
TFSA, you can name a beneficiary. I'm absolutely right.
Okay,
I don't have any doubt about that.
But it's taxable if it's not a charity.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're onto something there, Fred. Tax-free savings accounts, RSPs, life insurance policies. You name a beneficiary, it skips around the estate is a better way of putting it.
That's correct, and that's the important issue. Like from a planning point of view, what you need to try to do is say, how do I keep from creating an estate? If I can bypass the estate by naming beneficiaries, that's the thing to do. Let's say you have $500,000 in a bank account. You pass away. There's no joint owner on the bank account. $500,000 goes to your estate, subject to probate and subject to all kinds of other issues, okay?
That's right.
Now, let's say you took that $500,000 and you put it into a segregated mutual fund. You can name a beneficiary. And it's protected as well from creditors. So these are all issues that need to be discussed with a financial planner, and that's what I do. So you want to make an appointment to see myself, you can talk to Frida. She's down at the office right now at area code 604-737-3512. If you're long distance, it's 1-800-661-1495. So that's the gist of it. So Grace, does that answer your question? I guess Grace is gone.
That's fine. Let's touch on that subject of probate while we're talking about it, Fred.
Yeah.
I do get lots of questions, probably more on the probate side of things than actually wills. Wills, people come in, they get them done, and they tuck them away. Right. On the probate issue, everybody's nervous. Everybody thinks it's a lot of work. Everybody thinks it goes on, and it's an expensive endeavor. Yeah. You mentioned the word plan. You bang on. If your affairs are in order, your executor's going to have it a lot easier along the way.
For sure. Okay, we have to go to the break. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we're going to talk about the representation agreement, enduring powers of attorney, changes in the Wills Variation Act, and all the rest of it. Don't go away.
Fred Snyder.
I want people to call the show that are genuinely interested in increasing their financial IQ so that they can become financially independent sooner and stay financially independent longer.
Fred Snyder.
You don't have a blueprint. Imagine trying to build a house without a blueprint. And how about having a blueprint for your life? What are your lifestyle goals? You need to think about your family life. What are your goals about your family life? What are your lifestyle goals when it comes to health? What are your lifestyle goals when it comes to finances, mental and spiritual? You have to set goals in all those areas, not just finances.
Fred Snyder.
Often we fail because we put too much emphasis on one area and ignore everything else. We work our butts off and we ruin our health. So life is all about balance. So you need a life plan.
Fred Snyder.
Napoleon Hill says this, wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. Anything that you can vividly imagine, ardently desire, and enthusiastically act upon will inevitably come to pass.
Fred Snyder.
My goal, my mission is to help people enhance their financial IQs by teaching them what they need to know to make better financial decisions.
Fred Snyder, Saturday mornings at 8 and Sunday mornings at 10 on Smooth and Easy, CIL 650. This is CISL Vancouver. Smooth and easy. CIL 650. This is It's Your Money on CIL 650. Here once again is Fred Snyder.
Okay, once again, you're right, we're back. And again, we're talking about estate planning, which is part of the overall financial plan. Just a quick review. Education, step 1. Goals, step 2. Evaluate where you stand right now, step 3. Cash management, that's a budget, that's step 4. Risk management, that's step 5. Step 6 is debt management. 7 is retirement planning. 8 is capital creation. 9 is estate planning, and that's what we're talking about today. And then we have the overall review process. And on this show, we talk about all those steps and much, much more, because our mission, our purpose is to help you make better financial decisions by educating you, by raising or enhancing your financial IQ so that you can do that. So the name of the job is to teach you what the government, what the educational system didn't do, how to keep your money, okay? And one of the simplest ways to keep money is don't spend everything you earn. Make sure you have a budget and you spend less than you earn. Don't be broke on payday, all right? And better than that, don't max out your credit cards on payday. That's even worse, okay? So you either have a deficit, you have a break-even situation, or you have a surplus. Well, there's only one goal, that's to have a surplus. And when you have a surplus, now you got something to work with. And if you have a surplus and you continuously have one, you're almost going to automatically become financially successful. And then this is all about how you pass those assets that you were so successful in accumulating, how you pass those assets on to your descendants. That's what it's all about. It's all about your estate. It's all about your legacy. And all too often, people don't understand that. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that on the day you die, the government pretends that you sold everything you own at fair market value. It's called a deemed disposition. Mm-hmm. So they pretend you sold everything you own at fair market value. That could be your business. It could be worth $10, $15 million. You didn't pay that much for that business, so now you got a capital gain. So the government says, you died, let's pretend you sold everything. You'd owe us this much, so send us the money anyway. Okay? That's what happens. And you need a plan to avoid that. And part of that plan, one of the simplest ways, is called life insurance. And I see it every day. I have people that come into my office. They're too old or they're sick. They've had bypass surgery or something. They know they suddenly need life insurance, but they can't buy it because they waited too long. So if you're out there, part of your plan needs to be a proper life insurance program. And I don't want to sound like an insurance salesman, but I am insurance licensed. I do deal with life insurance, and I understand it. So again, we want your calls. We want to talk to you. We've had some good calls here today. 604-280-0650. Long distance, 877-280-0650. Log on, www.cil.650.com. And Frida, for those who are shy, reluctant to talk on the air, anybody who wants to make an appointment with myself to get a financial plan, to attend a workshop, to get a second opinion on their investment portfolio, call Frida, area code 604-737-3512. If you're calling long distance, it's 800-661-1495. Joining me today is Tim Black. He's a lawyer specializing in estate planning. So we have an expert. on the show. I'm like a general practitioner. He's the expert. Okay?
One of the subjects I did want to touch on about dying without a will is people often ask about guardians. You do appoint guardians in your will, and if you do die and there isn't another parent who is a legal guardian of your children, the public guardian and trustee, along with another bureaucrat, are so appointed such guardians. And again, a relative may step forward and say, I'm the better person to be the guardian of that child, but that again involves a court application, and guess what? Just like I said before, more expense. So having a will and appointing a guardian, if you still have minors, which is a person under the age of 19 in British Columbia, it's a prudent thing to do. Fred, you keep talking about a plan. A will is just part of that.
It is, yeah, sure. Again, it's step 9. It's embedded in step number 9.
There you go.
It's your estate plan.
Yeah.
Okay, called legacy planning or whatever, but that's what I call estate planning. We have Kathy from Surrey on the line. Kathy, welcome to the program.
Hi, you guys.
Thanks for calling, Kathy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Hey, I just have a couple questions. When you write your own will,
Yeah.
does it have to be computer typed up, or can it be handwritten?
It can be handwritten, Kathy. That's not a problem at all. There are some certain rules that you need to exist when you're signing a will, okay?
Yeah.
You need a couple witnesses, and those witnesses cannot be beneficiaries because there's concern that you're being forced into making an estate, a will that you don't necessarily want to do. So.
Yeah. I understand that, but I was reading somewhere that in this free will thing that if it's typed up, then you get the witnesses, and then it's different if you handwrite it. Is there a discrepancy there?
Kathy, you're catching me with on a question that I'm not aware that there's a difference between a handwritten will and a typed will. I'm very careful on how I sign up my clients with their wills, making sure that the beneficiaries aren't around when they're signing, and then I have 2 non-beneficiary witnesses who actually initial each page and sign at the end.
Yeah, I understand that part, but I was just kind of boggled on the handwritten or the typed up. Like I could always scan it on my computer and fill it in, right?
Yeah, Kathy, you know what? Give me a call on Tuesday. I'll have the right answer for you. There's a trick.
Or just Google it.
Yeah. There's a trick that lawyers use. I don't say this to all your callers, Fred. That if a lawyer says, "Well, let me take that under consideration," okay? You know what that means? The lawyer's going to check the book because he doesn't have a ready answer for you.
Get Fred to Google it while we're talking.
Yeah, so Kathy, I'll take it under consideration.
Well, maybe if you find out, you could mention it on air.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and listeners out there, if you just joined us, I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder. We've just been talking to Kathy, and Kathy, I appreciate your call. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. It's kind of miserable out there, though I don't know how anybody
I'm hoping it gets better for Family Day, Fred.
Maybe it'll clean up. But anyway, we're talking about financial planning. We're talking about a financial plan. We're talking about part of the financial plan, which is called the estate plan. And in there is your legacy, your will, and all the other things that happen that can mess things up for your beneficiaries. How do you manage your assets from the grave after you've gone? Because you can't take it with you, okay? So if you have wishes and desires about how your assets are distributed after you pass away, you don't want your family fighting over your assets and all the rest of it. You need a proper estate plan, and that is part of an overall financial plan. So if you're out there and you have a high net worth, especially if you have a high net worth, you have some estate problems that you're probably not even aware of. It's time to make a phone call, okay? So give us a call. Again, I remind you, we're talking about your money, more importantly about your money and how to keep it. And keeping it really means you keep it in the family. You look after your legacy. You make sure there's a legacy, and that money passes on to your children, your grandchildren, and all your other descendants. That's what it's all about. So again, number to call, 604-280-0650. Long distance, 877-280-0650. Log on, www.cal.650.com. Free to down at the office. If you're shy or reluctant to talk on the air, want to make an appointment to see myself, second opinion, written financial plan, seated at our next workshop. I think we're almost there right now. We're looking for 50 people to attend the workshop. I think we almost have 50 right now. Give Frida a call, 604-737-3512. Long distance, 1-800-661-1495. Remind you once again, we're talking about your money, more importantly, about your money and how to keep it. And I have a bona fide, certified lawyer with me here today, Tim Lack, okay? And he can answer all your questions that you may or may not have. And I'm going to ask him a few more questions while we're waiting for some calls to come in.
Can I jump in there? Because
just one quick question I want to make sure we get in before we run out of time. What in the world is a representation agreement, and why does someone want one?
A representation agreement is a document that sets out how you want someone else to take care of your health care and personal care if you can't do it yourself. And certainly with the decisions we've heard out of the Supreme Court this week,
I think some big changes.
Big changes and controversial changes and changes that we don't know how that's going to play out in our Canadian society. But the representation agreement is the document that says, here's how I want this person to handle my personal care, my health care, if I can't make that decision myself.
So the representation agreement deals with health.
That's right.
And then you have an enduring power of attorney.
Yes.
And that deals with wealth.
That's right. Health and wealth. Probably so.
They go hand in hand, they rhyme.
But Fred, I love when you said you can't take it with you, because so many people want to control their affairs from the grave. And as lawyers, we're always saying, the will controls things after you pass away. And if you die without a will, and that's our subject today, that's one of the other things you cannot control. If you have certain children in your life that you say, well, maybe I don't want them to have everything all at once.
So is it safe to say that everybody needs a will, an enduring power of attorney, and a representation agreement?
I think when people ask me to do a will, I'm doing the other documents as well, generally at the same time.
And they need executors, executrixes, guardians, and all those other things.
That's right.
So they all kind of fit together.
And with the executors, you should run it by them that they want to take on that role, and they have the capacity to take on that role.
And if you want to find out what an executor's duties are, go to my webpage.
Okay, good.
Because it's right on my webpage. We'll get to that in a minute. I need to talk to Joanne from Vancouver Island. Joanne, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, Joanne. Thanks for waiting.
Thoroughly enjoying your program.
Thank you.
And I had a question for Mr. Black. I have a friend that lives...
Mr. Lack.
Like the Canucks goalie. No relation that we know of.
I asked him if he was related. He said no.
Maybe 400 years ago.
So I have a friend that lives in Alberta, and her father and stepmother lived in the Lower Mainland, married for 25 years. Both of them owned their own homes, and when they married, they sold the homes and bought one home together, then moved into senior care. Her father died. A year later, the stepmother died, but the children of the stepmother didn't inform the family of the death, and none of those shared assets went to both sides of the family. So no idea where the money went, and I'm wondering, is that legal, and if it's not, is there any recourse?
Generally, when someone dies, the executor's job would be to determine who should be given notice of the death, okay? And that generally, if it stops with named beneficiaries and children for the most part.
Okay.
Recourse, there's always recourse through the courts. You got to watch out for getting on it sooner rather than later. And I wish I made notes on who died and what assets they had, and who actually shared in the assets after death.
Okay.
It does sound like a situation where someone may have been up to some wrongdoing. And again, it might be beyond this talk show this morning, but certainly something a lawyer could guide you with outside of this phone-in show.
All right. So I've taken down your phone number, so I'll pass that on to her then.
Please. Thank you, Joanne.
Great. Thank you for your help with that.
And while we're on the subject of spouses and stepkids and stuff like that, we should be mindful that here in British Columbia, a spouse, you don't have to be formally married to be a spouse, and to be a spouse under estates. So if you're in a common marriage-like arrangement for 2 years, you're a spouse, whether it's same-sex or otherwise, and you're a spouse in the eyes of a distribution in an intestacy, if I can say that.
You see situations where a house is set up joint with rights of survivorship.
Yeah.
And we'll say one of the people that own the house gets married. Let's say they were single, and then all of a sudden their marriage doesn't work out, and there's a split up. That can really mess things up, right?
It sure can. And I think it's probably we're down to the last 15 minutes of the show today, but I think challenging wills and problems with extended families now in Canadian society is probably a topic for a whole hour on itself.
Maybe two.
Yeah, yeah.
You have the Wills Variation Act here in BC.
Yeah, and there's
so how does that work?
Well,
generally speaking.
Generally speaking, and I got to be careful here because a lot of people are running on information that has changed as of March of last year. But the Wills Variation
would that change mean that people should update their will?
I think it's prudent for people on occasion to look at their will and see what changes have happened in my life. Have I had a kid? Has my kid had an accident and needs more help than some of my other children? Have I helped one child buy a house and the other one isn't at that stage yet, but I've gifted, while I'm still alive, maybe tens, maybe hundreds of thousands to one child over another, and I should account for that in my will? Those are the types of big decisions that happens in one's life.
They can all be revisited, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you can always revisit a will. And when you change a will, it's called a codicil. But just ripping up the old one and doing a new one, there's nothing wrong with that either.
So I think one of the things that you do when you do a new will is you revoke all previous wills, right?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
That's
just to make sure there's no conflict.
That's right.
Where should you keep your will? Like, okay, I just set up a will. I come to you, Tim, and we set up a will. What do I do now?
Well, a lot of people keep it in a safety deposit box at the bank, but some people find that cost prohibitive. The banks do charge for that service, and some people don't want to pay that. At our law firm, we have a safe that's rated for, I think, 6 hours of fire around it. Okay. And I have hundreds of wills in there. And
so you keep a copy with your lawyer?
Yes. And now people say, well, do you file it in Victoria? You don't actually file the will in Victoria. You file the location of your will in Victoria. So that's one of the first things you do when you probate an estate is you check with Victoria to see where this person kept a will and which is the latest will they have. So that's the only role Victoria will take. I guess probably they see it as a liability if they're actually were holding the wills. But lawyers' offices, banks.
But if you prepare a will for me,
yeah,
and I have a will, and I stick it in the freezer at home, as an example,
yeah,
or a safety deposit box or whatever, how would anybody know where to find that will?
Well, that's what the registry in Victoria is.
That's
set
the
up
purpose of the registry, to say
that
this is where the will is physically located.
That's right. That's right.
So I hope you got that, ladies and gentlemen, listeners out there, because that's a very important point.
You're right, and it was sort of what I mentioned earlier in the program, Fred, is that having your affairs in order is the best thing for an executor. So if you do name an executor, there's no harm in giving him a photocopy of that will and saying, here's the photocopy, and here's where the original is.
Well, you're a client of mine. You have a financial plan, and I would have will and where it's located right in the financial plan, so you give me a call.
Bang on.
As well. You got to communicate is what it's all about. I mean, estate planning really ultimately is all about love, okay? I mean, you don't want to dump your problems on your beneficiaries when you pass away. Make it as easy as possible for them, by communicating.
Fred, your experience is showing through, because it is about communication, and it is about letting people know about your intentions. People find wills to be a secretive subject.
Yeah, they don't even want to talk about them.
Yeah, and they're afraid.
Death.
They're afraid they're going to die.
Yeah.
As soon as
and
they make their
they
will.
are. They're going to die. So why be afraid of it? It's going to happen. Okay? I mean, let's talk to Leslie from Surrey. Leslie, welcome to the program.
Oh.
Hi, Leslie.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
I know you've talked about life insurance in different types.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I, we have one, and we've always had a term life.
Yes.
Now, my husband's up in the 70s, and he's got a degenerative disease.
Mm-hmm.
And his insurance is going up almost by the thousands every year.
Well, then he's got the wrong kind, and he's paying too much for it.
Yeah.
That needs to be looked at.
Now, because he's got this disease and he's at the age he is, he's.
Look,
you know,
this is we don't have a lot of time, and there's a point I want to communicate here. For people who need insurance for estate planning purposes, the best insurance policy to have is a joint last-to-die policy, which means there's no payout until both spouses are gone. Okay? And that makes it less expensive. Also, if you're healthy and your spouse has a problem, you're still insurable because it's based on your life rather than his. It's a joint last-to-die policy, and in most cases, it wouldn't have a cash surrender value.
Okay, that's what we don't want.
And it will insure
that.
you until you're 100. That's in most cases, not all, but in most cases, that's the best kind to have. And if you don't have that, and most people that I talk to don't have that.
No.
So the wealthier people that have a big estate problem, you need a life insurance policy, joint last to die, term to 100. And it should be shopped. You should shop the market because it's different costs across different people. So you need to deal with an independent life insurance agent that can shop the market for you.
Okay, but at his age and with his health issues now.
Are you healthy yourself?
Yes.
Well, if you're insurable, you would qualify for such a policy.
Oh, okay.
And it can be on both of your lives. That's the important point I want to make. The health of one spouse can be impaired. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, that sounds good then.
So you should call free to make an appointment. Give me a call. I'll give you a quote.
Okay. Well, that's good. Do I have time for one more question?
Sure.
My son just got married, and they bought a townhouse, and I'm wanting them to get a financial plan.
Mm-hmm.
They need to sit down and learn all about these things because
Yes.
they don't listen to Mom. Do you do it one-on-one?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So
If they want to make an appointment to talk to Frida, this is what happens if anybody comes to see me. I sit down across a desk. I have a form filled out, and it's called the discovery process, the client discovery process. I fill a form in. I take your name, your address, phone numbers, contact points, your goals, your objectives. I make a list of your assets. I make a list of your liabilities. I do a budget. I look at your insurance products, whatever you have. I look at your will, whether you have an enduring power of attorney, whether you have a representation agreement, all the things that we're talking about here on this show.
Okay.
And I put that into a document. Then I turn that document over to a person who is on my staff, and I say, here, generate a financial plan from this data.
Perfect.
And then we update that financial plan once a year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll get hold of Frida.
That's the process. And one thing I really have to emphasize, there is no cost, there is no obligation of any kind whatsoever.
Okay. That's great. I will get hold of Frida, and I'm wanting to kind of gift it to my children because they don't want to listen to me. So I figure, well,
they never do. Tell me
No.
about it.
No,
Well, you sound pretty prudent, Leslie. Your kids should listen to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and have a good day.
Leslie, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your call.
Okay.
You
bye-bye.
take care. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. So once again, I'm certified financial planner Fred Snyder. I kind of feel like a piece of meat. There's a big stamp on my back that says certified.
Grade A.
Grade A. Say, that's good. I'm going to add that. Triple A. I'm a certified financial planner, Fred Snyder, also a registered financial planner representing Scotia McLeod. Those are professional designations in my industry, and they're top drawer designations. And so if you have a financial advisor and they don't have some initials after their name, you should ask them why not. Because it's significant to have some initials after your name, okay? And we take your calls live on this show, and we do this show every Saturday, again, between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And we have a replay of the show again tomorrow morning as well. So again, if you want to tune in tomorrow, you can listen to a replay of a previous show. And anybody who calls the show, if you want to take it to the next level, you call Frida. Frida's down at the office, and you can reach Frida down at the office at 604-737-3512. If you want to call my cell phone, if you want to talk to me, you can reach me on my cell phone, which is 644-PLAN, 644-7526. But don't call until I'm on the way home. Don't call me during the show because I won't be able to take the call. Okay? So call me on my cell phone. My direct line down at the office is 737-3501. Okay? We want to talk to you. We want you to come in. We want to talk to you about your money, but the key phrase in there is how to keep it. How to keep it. It's about keeping money. We all make money, but we don't keep it. That's the bottom line. So my mission is to teach you what you need to know to make better financial decisions. We've talked here today about estate planning. So ask yourself a question. What was the most important thing I learned today?
Have a will.
Have a will. Okay? Because really, you have a will. If you think you don't have one, if you didn't really formally write one, you have the one the government writes for you if you don't have one. So would you rather have the one the government writes for you or the one that you write for yourself if you want to really control your assets? So you can't say I don't have a will. You die intestate, that means you don't have a will, at least a formal will. But if you die intestate, you have the one the government writes for you. Okay? And they have a formula as to how they distribute assets.
That's right.
Somebody's calling me already.
On your cell.
On my cell. I'm not going to take it.
You can't take that one.
No, the show is finished in a few minutes. We're going to have to go. So let's sum it up, Tim. In summary, what happens when in the estate planning part of our business? What's the problems that occur? What's the worst situation you've ever seen?
Oh my gosh, Fred. You're catching me off guard. I can't. 20 plus years in the business, I've seen a lot of tears and anger at the way wills were handled. I've seen siblings or cousins fight over assets, and it's a heartbreaker. And quite often it tears apart the family. And also, this is the important part, Fred. It costs money to fight.
Well, I personally have seen nightmares.
Yeah.
In my own family.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolute nightmares. And really, you can't always eliminate all these issues, but you can mitigate them.
Yeah.
You can reduce the impact of not having a will, not doing proper estate planning, if you take the steps. And the best step to do that is to call somebody like myself, make an appointment, come on in for a full review. We have to go. Same time, same station, next week. Bye for now.
If you'd like Fred to review your portfolio, call his office right now at 604-737-3512. That's 604-737-3512.